5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. The Starliner is headed back to space on the shoulders of Atlas, powered by a workforce dedicated to its success.
Everyone knows that Boeing's first ever manned travel with the Starliner was a huge mistake, leaving NASA astronauts Barry Butch Wilmore and Sunita Williams-Sunama stuck on the ISS. The Starliner was supposed to be Boeing's ultimate weapon against Elon Musk's SpaceX. Despite decades of repair and reconstruction, the vehicle still failed its first crewed mission. Now, there is a new problem. The Starliner's long-dead radio system has started transmitting strange sounds. Even more bizarre is the unknown source of these sounds. What could it be? Welcome to the Space Minds channel. Today we will examine the cause of the strange sounds on the Starliner. By the end of this video, you'll be shocked by the mystery behind these sounds. Trust me, you definitely want to watch till the end. On Saturday the 31st of August 2024, Butch Wilmore was just running routine checks on the Starliner when he noticed strange sounds emanating from the speakers in the capsule. At first, he thought it was just static sounds from the radio interferences, but it all got weirder when he realized where the sounds were coming from: the already dead radio frequency system of the Starliner. A minor issue the Starliner had faced after its docking on the International Space Station was that it lost radio communications with Mission Control in Johnson Space Center in Houston. For this reason, communication could only be made via hardline, which was less prone to interference.
And let me keep mic and let you hear. I don't know what's making it, but I don't know if it's something that maybe is connected between here and there, making that happen. But anyway.
Seeing that the once dead radio system had bizarrely come online, Butch Wilmore phoned Mission Control saying, there's a strange noise coming through the speaker. I don't know what's making it.
Hear that, Butch. Give us a minute and I'll call you back when it's ready.
Wilmore went on to explain the nature of the sound, stating it was some unknown noise, something between the static of television and the loud sound of metals against each other. When Mission Control tried listening to the sound from their own speakers, they got nothing, no sounds. Apparently, those weird sounds could only be heard on the docked Starliner and could not be transmitted to Earth. This only fueled the mystery behind the sounds. Calling Wilmore back, the Earth-based control room recounted that they got nothing on their speakers, no sounds, no interference of any kind. Yet even while the call was on, the radio system didn't stop its eerie noise. Floating in the Starliner, Butch brought the speaker close to the phone. What was heard sent chills down everyone at Mission Control. Alright, Butch, that one came through. It was kind of like a pulsing noise, almost like a sonar ping. Mission Control finally responded.
Alright, Butch, that one came through. It was kind of like a pulsing noise, almost like a sonar ping.
Wilmore wasn't buying it, and somehow his guts told him there was more to it than an ordinary sonar ping. Again, he allowed them to listen to the strange noises. Mission Control took note again and mentioned they'd get back to him once they'd figured out the exact cause. And now the big question. In light of the matter, NASA had to make a press release early to save Boeing from another blunder. 2 days after the incident, NASA came out publicly explaining that the sound which was heard by Butch Wilmore and Mission Control had stopped, and was because of audio configuration between the space station and the Starliner. Could this really be true, or is NASA trying to hide something? Could the space station's radio signals be strong if it interfered with the radio frequency system, flipping it back one in a rather absurd way? Or is there another big flaw in the design of the Starliner? While it's possible for radio signals to interfere with one another, the tendency of a radio signal or magnet interference bringing the radio system back to life is way off key. Practically impossible. So what exactly is NASA and Boeing not telling us? So far, nothing else has been publicly released on the status of the sound and if it truly was just an interference. One thing about sounds recorded in space is that they rarely ever mean good. These sounds are usually either the breaking away of parts of the space plane, a compression issue, or just eerie sounds we might say come from people of another dimension, aliens. Some of these sounds, as we shall see now, have unsolved mysteries like the Starliner's strange noises. While on a trajectory around Earth, astronaut James McDivitt phoned NASA's mission control with tension in his voice. He reported that there had been a mysterious knocking sound while in the shuttle, rat-a-tat-tat as he mimics it. He also described it as a mechanical knocking from outside the body of the shuttle. The knocking continued straight for 4 days between June 3rd to June 7th in 1965. While NASA never quite released the actual audio transmitted by McDivitt, they explained that the sound could have been made by minute space debris smashing against the exterior of the Gemini IV capsule, or due to expansion and contraction of the shuttle due to heating and cooling as it orbited around space. Even though there is skepticism about the origin of these sounds, NASA's explanation could be valid, especially since there is actually space debris just outside Earth, and the expansions and contractions are normal happenings during space travel. But what if they were wrong? What if they lied to us? While Apollo 10 astronauts Thomas Stafford, John Young and Eugene Cernan were in space quite close to the moon, their speakers all beeped with the same eerie whistling and whooshing sounds. Cernan described the sound as outer space-type music, even though the unseemly notes didn't actually seem like musical notes. Alien music, maybe. Even though all three men seemed unfazed by the sound and only used it as music while roaming above the moon, they say they still never knew the exact source of the sound. Again, NASA covered it all up. These sounds were never made public until almost 50 years later, with NASA explaining that these sounds were due to radio interference between the lunar module and command module radio transmission systems. We can't exactly say why this was hidden, or why NASA released it around the same time all three astronauts died. One thing is true though, NASA is hiding something from us, something really scary. Months after the Apollo 10 astronauts touched back down on Earth, NASA again launched Apollo 11, the first space mission where man set foot on the moon. While it was a breakthrough for mankind, there were some things about this mission that NASA never actually told us until several decades later. On landing on the moon and taking his first step, Neil Armstrong called the attention of his counterpart in the lunar module, Buzz Aldrin, to listen to the sound they had been told about. Radioing back to NASA on Earth, the duo recounted the sound to the control base. As it turned out, NASA had briefed both Armstrong and Aldrin about these sounds heard by Apollo 10's James McDivitt prior to their own Apollo 11 flight. Armstrong admitted that if they hadn't been told beforehand, anyone who heard these sounds would instantly get scared. It was just the same as that from Apollo 10, only slightly amplified so it was more audible. NASA finally came to the conclusion that these sounds were made by radio interference during the separation of the lunar module and command module. Yet a formal address was not made until almost 50 years later, around the same time when Apollo 10's music was released. Okay, that just makes it funny. As the years go by, space sounds only get weirder. On July 15, 1995, STS-70 Shuttle crew heard for 9 days a sequence of knocks, taps and hammerings. Unsure of the sounds they heard, they phoned in NASA for an explanation. The mission control on Earth listened alongside the astronauts in space with the sounds going on and on non-stop. When asked to search their cabin, the astronauts reported they saw no interior deformation that could cause these sounds, no loose panels, no free floating equipment, no interior body floor. NASA then concluded the sounds were most likely caused by contractions and expansions in the external body of the space shuttle, much similar to their conclusion on the Apollo 10 strange music incident. Whether this was true or not, nobody knows. Still, we are left with the question: is this a pattern or is something out of the ordinary? Even SpaceX has recorded some sounds while performing test flights to space. Endeavour, SpaceX's space vehicle, which currently holds the world record for the longest crewed spacecraft in orbit, was first launched on May 30th, 2020. Its astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken phoned mission control on Earth, reporting they could hear an almost inaudible ping-pong sound. Although it wasn't so alarming, it was something worth noting. The widely accepted explanation provided by SpaceX on these sounds was similar to that of NASA's Apollo 11 whistling: thermal expansion and contraction caused by direct heat from the sun and the cold that followed when the shuttle was in Earth's shadow. Again, was this actually what happened? China's first astronaut Yang Lui once told the world about a strange intermittent knocking he had heard while on the Shenzhou IV spacecraft in 2003. A non-causal situation I have met in space is a knock that appeared from time to time. Nervous, he checked all internal spaces of the plane to be sure there was nothing loose. Nothing was loose. So where was this sound coming from? It neither came from outside nor inside the spaceship, but sounded like someone is knocking the body of the spaceship just as knocking an iron bucket with a wooden hammer, he added. Now, to make things even more mysterious, this same knocking was heard by successive Chinese space missions, including the Shenzhou 6 and 7 spacecrafts. There was no explanation for this one. Now, we clearly see why NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore is scared. Is NASA really telling him the truth about these strange sounds heard from Starliner's dead radio system? Could these really be just radio interference? Or is there something really off about the Starliner? Whatever it is, let's hope these sounds have a more ordinary source. If not, Boeing might be on fire again. And with that, we come to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Space Minds for the latest updates on our space news and adventures.